بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد من هاج السالكين The Path of the Wayfarer by Abdurrahman bin Nasir al-Sa'di Book of Pilgrimage Kitab al-Hajj. The proof on which it is based is Allah's statement وَلِلَّهِ النَّاسُ يُجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. Hajj, the house, is a duty that people owe to Allah, those who have the ability. Ability here is the most essential condition and means being in position of provisions and transportation. After having the essential and basic requirement, ability for a man comprises of having with her a mahram, ability for a woman comprises of her having with her mahram guardian who accompanies her on her travel. The hadith of Jabir on the pilgrimage of the Prophet comprises of major ruling concerning it. It's recorded by Muslim and daughter of Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu anhu. The Prophet stayed in Medina for 9 years without making Hajj. In the year he announced to the people that he will be making Hajj, so a large amount of people headed toward Medina, all hoping to accompany him and do what he does. We left and accompanied him until we came to Dul al-Hulayfa. At that time, Asma bint Umaysa gave birth to Muhammad bin Abi Bakr, and she sent an emissary to the messenger of Allah asking, "What should I do?" He said, "Perform ghusl, wrap a cloth around your private part, and enter into Hiram." The Prophet prayed in the mosque and then rode al-Qaswa, his female camel, until he reached al-Bayda. Then he uttered words of Tawheed, saying, "Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika lak, labbaik, innal hamda wa ni'mata lakal mulku wa la sharika lak. Here I am Allah, here I am Allah, here I am, here I am, here I am Allah, here I am, here I am, you have no partner, here I am, all praise and blessings are yours, and all sovereignty belongs to you, you have no partner." Then the people also pronounced the talbiyah, which they pronounce today, and the Messenger of Allah did not refrain them from any of it, but he continued to say his own talbiyah. Jabir said, "Our intention was for only Hajj and nothing else, being aware of Umrah at that season. But when we came with him to the house, that is the Kaaba, he touched the corner with the black stone and then made 7 circuits around the Kaaba, jogging 3 and walking 4. He then went to the Maqam al-Ibrahim, station of Ibrahim, and recited, 'Take the Maqam of Ibrahim as a place of prayer.' He then prayed 2 units with the Maqam being located between him and the house. Another wording of this narration is said he recited in the first unit, 'Say he is Allah the One,' Quran 114, and in the second unit, 'Say you disbelievers, He then returned to the corner and touched it. Afterwards he left from the gate toward Mount Safa. When he got close to Mount Safa, he recited the verse, Safa and Marwa are among the symbols of Allah, Quran Surah 2, Ayah 158. He then said, "I began with that which Allah began with." He started with Safa and climbed it until he saw the house and faced toward the Qibla and said, "La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. There's no deity except Allah. Allah is the greatest." He then said, "La ilaha illallah, la sharika lah, lahul mulku wa alhamdu wa ala kulli shay'in qadir. La ilaha illallah wahdahu anjazta wahdahu wa nasara abdahu wa hazzama al-ahzaba wahdah." There is no deity beside Allah. He is alone with no partner. For him is all sovereignty and praise, and is over all things independent. There is no deity except Allah. Alone he fulfilled his promise, aided his servant, and alone defeated the confederates. He said these 3 times. He then descended and walked toward Marwa, and when his feet came down to the bottom of the valley, he would walk fast until it appeared like we were ascending. Then he would begin to walk normally until he reached Marwa. He did on Marwa similar to what he did on Safa. When it was his last circuit to Marwa, he said, "If I knew then what I know now, I would not have brought with me a sacrificial animal and would have performed an Umrah. Those of you who did not bring with him a sacrificial animal, let him remove his ihram and treat it as an Umrah." Suraka bin Malik bin Juisham asked Messenger, "Is this only in regards to this year or forever?" The Messenger interlocked his finger and said, "Umrah is part of Hajj. No, rather it is forever." Ali came from Yemen with the sacrificial animals for the prophets of Allah, and found Fatima sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be and found Fatuma to be from among those who had removed their ihram. She was wearing a dyed garment and had on call, so he rebuked her for what she had done. He said, "My father has commanded me to do so." He Jabir radiallahu anhu said, Ali radiallahu anhu used to say in Iraq, I went to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after having been harsh on Fatima for what she had done, to ask him about the matter. I informed him that I had rebuked her. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "She has spoken the truth. She has spoken the truth. She has spoken the truth. What did you say when you made the Hajj? Regret upon yourself." He said, "I said, Allah, I'm going into the set of Ihram with the same purpose your Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has put it on." The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I have brought sacrificial animals with me, so do not exit from him." He, Jabir radiallahu anhu, said the amount of sacrificial animals that Ali brought from Yemen and the ones that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought were 100. He, Jabir, said, so all of the people exited Ihram and trimmed their hair, except for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and those who brought the sacrificial animals with them. When it was the day of Tarwiyah, they headed for Mina and wore the Ihram for Hajj. The messenger rode and prayed Zuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and Fajr. I stayed a while until the sun rose, and ordered that a tent of hair be pitched for him in Namira at the edge of Arafah. The messenger of Allah then set out, and Quraysh had no doubt that he would stop at Al-Mashar al-Haram, similar to what the Quraysh did during the pre-Islamic era. The messenger of Allah sallallahu passed by it until he came to Arafat and found that the tent had been pitched for him at Namira. So he went in and remained there until the sun had passed the medium. He then commanded Al-Qaswa to be brought and saddled for him, which was done. He came to the bottom of the valley and gave a sermon to the people, saying, "Your blood and your wealth are indeed sacred to one another, as the sacredness of this day of yours, in this month of yours, in this place of yours. Every affair from the slippery Islamic era is under my feet, completely abolished. The blood feuds from the pre-Islamic era are abolished. The first blood feud that I abolish is that of Ibn Rabi'a bin al-Haritha, who was Nasr among the tribe of Sa'd and killed by Hudayl. Usually of the pre-Islamic area is abolished, and the first usury that abolished that of Abbas bin Abi Talib. All of it is abolished. Fear Allah with regards to your women, for you all look them with trust from Allah, and made their private parts lawful for you by the words of Allah. Your right over them is that they should not allow anyone you dislike to sit on your bed, but if they do so, then chastise them in a manner that does not cause injury or leave a mark. Their right upon you is sustenance and clothing, according to what is reasonable. I have let among you that which, if you are to hold on to you will never be misguided. The book of Allah, you will be asked about me. So to you say, we said, we bear witness that you have certainly conveyed the message, fulfilled your duty, and then given wise counsel. The Prophet said, while pointing his index finger to the sky and referring to the people, Allah be a witness, 3 times. Bilal called the Adhan, and then he called the Iqama, and the Prophet ﷺ prayed Duhur. Then Bilal called the Iqama for Asr, and the Prophet ﷺ led the Asr prayer, and he did not pray anything between the two. He then rode until he came to the place of stay and faced his camel Al-Qaswa towards the side where there were rocks, having the path that was taken by those who went on foot in front of him, and faced the direction of the Qibla. He kept standing there until the sun had set. The yellow light had slightly gone, and the disk of the sun had disappeared. The Prophet made Usama bin Zayd sit behind him, and he pulled the reins of Al-Qaswa so tightly that the head was touching the front of the saddle. The whole gesturing with his right hand, people tranquility every time he will come to a mount of threaded ropes. He loosened her reins a little so that she could climb. He then came to Muzdalifah, where he prayed Maghrib and then Isha with one adhan and 2 Iqamas, and did not make any optional prayer between two. Then he lay down until the coming of dawn. He prayed Fajr with one adhan and Iqama when the morning was made clear to him. Then he rode Al-Qaswa until he came to a Mashar al-Ahram. He faced the Qibla, supplicated to Allah, glorified Him, and pronounced His uniqueness and oneness, and remained standing until the daylight became evident. He then departed before the sun rose, and they seated behind him was Al-Fadl al-Abbas, who was a man with beautiful hair, fair complexion, and a handsome face. Moving with the messenger was also a group of women, and Al-Fadl began to look at them. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu placed his hand on the face of Fadl, who then turned his face to the other side and began to look at them. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu again placed his hand on his face, and he turned his face to the other side. He came to the bottom of the Mahasir, speed up a little, and took the middle passage which comes out of the greatest Jamara. He followed until he came to the Jamara which is by the tree. He drew it 7 small pebbles, saying Allahu Akbar with every pebble drawn. The pebbles were similar to those used in slings. He drew them from the bottom of the valley. Then he went to the place of sacrifice and slaughtered 63 animals with his own hands, and he gave the rest to Ali, who slaughtered them with his hands, and he gave him a share in his sacrifice. He then ordered that a piece from each slaughtered animal be brought and put in a pot and cooked. Then both of them, the Prophet and Ali, ate from its meat and drank from its broth. The Messenger of Allah then rode to the house that is the Kaaba and made tawaf al-ifada and prayed the duhur in Makkah. He then went to Banu Abdul Muttalib, who were providing the people with Zamzam, and said, "Drew water, Banu Al-Muttalib, were it not that the people will accept from you this right of providing water, I will have drawn it along with you." So they gave him a bucket, and he drank from it. The Prophet will also perform the rites and say to the people, "Take your rights from me." Therefore, the perfect model for performing Hajj is the one established by the Prophet and his companions. Hajj is related to 4 arkan's pillars: wearing the hiram, standing in Arafah, making tawaf, circulation around the Kaaba; 4 sa'i, circuit between Safa and Marwa. The obligation of Hajj are: 1 entering into ihram from the Miqat designated area; 2 staying in Arafah until sunset; 3 spending the night of Nahr in Muzdalifah; 4 spending the night of Tashriq in Mina; 5 stoning the jamras; 6 shaving or shortening the hair or on the head. 8 days sufficient. The difference between abandoning a pillar and an obligation are the following: if one of the pillars is abandoned, then Hajj becomes invalid. If one of the obligations is omitted, it is a sin, and an animal sacrifice must be offered in compensation. A person who intends to enter the ihram is given the choice between tamatu, which is the best, qiran, and ifrad. Tamatu, one enters into ihram first for umrah during the months of Hajj and complete it, and then exits from his ihram. He then assumes ihram for Hajj during the same Hajj season. He is required to slaughter an animal if he is not from the resident of the sacred precinct. Ifrad, one enters into ihram with the sole intention of performing only Hajj. Qiran, one performs umrah and then Hajj is in the same state of ihram, or he performs umrah and then combines Hajj with it before making the tawaf for umrah. A person who starts with tamatu is obliged to convert it to Qiran under the following conditions: he fears that he may miss staying in Arafah because he is busy performing Umrah; if a woman begins menstruating or has postpartum bleeding and knows that he will not become pure before the time of staying in Arafah. As for the individual performing Ifrad and Qiran, they observe the same rituals. However, it is obligatory for the one performing Qiran to have sexual animals with him, which is not a condition for the one performing Ifrad. The person in ihram, the muhrim, must avoid the following: removing any hair, clipping the nails, wearing stitched clothes in the case of men, covering the head in the case of men, applying fragrance for both men and women, hunting and instructing others to doing so, or aiding others in their killing. The greatest and gravest prohibition during ihram is sexual intercourse, since the prohibition of it is intensified, and it nullifies the hajj and causes the pilgrim to offer camel as expression. If a man covers his head or wears stitched clothing, or a woman covers her face, wears gloves, or applies fragrance, the last being for both men and women, they must choose from the following expression: first 3 days, feed 6 poor people, or slaughter sheep. If he kills a game, then he has a choice between slaughtering an animal of similar likeness, if there is an equivalent to it from cattle. Assess its value based on an equivalent animal from the place where he killed the first animal, and purchasing food with its value to feed the poor, giving each person a mad of wheat or a half a sa of any other type of food. First a day in lieu of each poor person that is to be fed. Concerning the sacrificial animals offered for the matu and Qiran, it is very good that it meets the conditions of udhiyah sacrificial animal. If an individual cannot afford it, then he must fast 10 days, 3 days, 3 days during Hajj. It's permissible for him to fast the days of Tashriq as the 3 days, and 7 upon his return home. This ruling also applies to the one who abandons a obligatory act or it becomes mandatory on him due to engage in foreplay. If there is sacrificial animal or food stuff that is offered in connection to the sacred priesthood or Hiram should be given to the poor of the Hiram, where they are permanent or temporary resident. However, the fast can be observed anywhere. Concerning the meat of the slaughtered animal offered for tamattu and Quran, it's recorded that the person can eat from it, give some as a gift, and gives away some as charity. As for the slaughtering of an animal that becomes mandatory as expression due to the committing of a prohibition or the abandonment of an obligation, it is referred to as a blood compensation, and the one offering it is not permitted to eat from it. Rather, the entire meat of the slaughtered animal must be given away as charity, since it is an expiation. Concerning tawaf, its conditions are the following: having intention, starting from the black stone, the sunnah is to greet the black stone and kiss it. If he is unable to do so, then he should point to it and say, Bismillahi, Allahu Akbar, Allahumma imanan bik, wa tasdiqan bi kitabik, wa wafa'an bi hadik, wa itiba'an li sunnati nabiyyik Muhammadan sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Aywa. In the name of Allah, Allah is the greatest. Allah, faith is in you, believe in your book, loyalty to your covenant, and compliance to the way of your Prophet Muhammad. Maintain the house, that is the Kaaba, to be left, complete the 7 circuit, purify himself from filth and ritual impurity. Being in a state of purification for the rituals, excluding the tawaf, it's an obligatory sunnah. It's mentioned in hadith that الطواف بالبيت صلاة بالبيت صلاة إلا أن الله أباها فيه الكلام. Tawaf around the house is a prayer except that Allah has made speaking around it permissible. It is recommended to do the following during it: observing ابتداء during tawaf القدوم, arrival tawaf, he rubs his upper garment رداء under his right shoulder and over his left shoulder to observe the ramal brisk walk during the first 3 circuit and walks normal during the remaining ones. It is not recommended to observe ramal and ibtida in any of the tawafs other than this one. As for the condition of sa'i, they are the following: Niyyah, intention, completion of 7 rounds, and beginning at Safa. It is legally prescribed that the individual mentions the name of Allah and supplicate to him alone during tawaf, sa'i, and all other rituals. The Prophet said, إنما جعل الطواف بالبيت وبين الصفا والمروة ورمي الجمار لإقامة ذكر الله. Tawaf around the house and between Safa and Marwa and stoning the pillars are prescribed for the establishment of the remembrance of Allah. Abu Hurairah narrated, when Allah granted his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam the conquest of Makkah, the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after praising and thanking Allah, stood up and addressed the people, saying, Allah kept the elephant away from Makkah and gave authority over it to his messenger and the believers. It was neither permissible for anyone before me to fight in it, nor will it be permissible for anyone to fight after me. To anyone after me, nor it permissible for anyone after me. Fighting was made permissible for me for a few hours of a day, but it will never be permissible for anyone after me. Do not kill its animals, do not uproot its thorny shrubs, and do not pick up the less things except by one whole prawns publicly. The relative of the murderer is given the choice between blood money or retribution. Ibn Abbas said, Messenger of Allah, except the cutting of the lemon grass as we use it in our houses and our graves. So the Prophet ﷺ said, except for the lemon grass. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Madina haramun ma bayna al-Ir ila Tor. All of Medina is sacred from the southern hill of Air to the northern hill of Tor. أيوة 5 من الدواب كلهن فاسق يقتلهن في الهرب: الغرب والهدات والأقرب والفار والكلب والوقور. 5 animals which are harmful can be killed in the sacred presence or in the haram. يقتلهن في الهرم. The crow, the kite, the scorpion, the rat, and the rabid dog.